The ovaries are talking, and trust us, you'll want to hear what they have to say. Science, tech, hormones, and a whole lot of honesty. This is Talking Ovaries. Hi, welcome to Talking Ovaries. This week we're talking about black boxes, not black holes, but black boxes. Great news this week. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration in the US, released some information to say that they were removing the black box warnings from menopausal hormone therapy, or HRT as some of you know it. We refer to it as both MHT or HRT interchangeably. Great news, Tanya. What did you think?
Hallelujah. That's all I have to say, right? It's about time. It's a little bit too late, to be honest, right? Because it's been 20 years of misinformation around estrogen, and we will get into the details of that. We have a whole generation of women who were denied this treatment, which is really life-saving in many ways and very beneficial. Many women could have been spared the pain of going through the menopause transition, and most importantly, prevented having to deal with osteoporosis and all the stuff that comes from that. But better late than never. So hallelujah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of noise on social media about this. There's been a huge spectrum of opinions. But I think on this episode, there are a few things we wanted to cover. We wanted to look at what has changed and why, and give you a little bit of an explanation of that. We want to look at how that can affect you, and also some examples of what you could say to your doctor if you're one of those women who has been to your healthcare provider, talked about MHT, and has been told, well, no, we don't use that because it causes breast cancer.
Yes.
So that's what we're wanting to cover this week. Anything else you could think of, Tanya, that you wanted to look at too?
No, I think it's just trying to cut through some of the noise, like you said, make it a little bit clearer, and really help everyone advocate for themselves now that we have this new information, because the blanket labeling that estrogen causes breast cancer has really been scaring a lot of women away from using it. I can't even tell you how many discussions I've had with my family, friends. I was trying to explain to them that, all the studies point in a different direction now. I couldn't convince them because the label still said that estrogen causes cancer. So now that that is going to be cleared up, I think it's great. Let's just get into it and how we can improve the lives of millions and millions of women.
So what is the black box? I can tell you that most of the women that I speak to have no idea what a black box warning is. And if you get a pack of MHT, or in fact lots of medications, but not all, it will come with a patient insert or a product information insert. And I can actually show you one. We showed one last week, but this is a product insert for a product that I use, which is MHT. And it is literally what it says it is. It is a black box, and it is a list of precautions and warnings. And you can see this is quite a big black box. So this is the strongest warning a governing body, Health Canada, FDA, the NHS, or whatever country you're in, can use to illustrate that there are warnings and precautions with regards to a specific medication. And what the FDA is saying, not terrifically clearly, you have to admit, is that they are removing those black box warnings, some, if not all of them, and we don't have that clear yet, from the patient insert, which has come about because they've been able to look at the data over the past 23 years when they stopped the Women's Health Initiative study in the US. So do you want to take us back to that time, Tanya?
The Women's Health Initiative was actually the largest medical research study undertaken ever on anything. It was the purpose of the study was originally to see if estrogen could be used to deal with cardiovascular disease in women. It had nothing to do with breast cancer, first of all. So, and the study was looking at not our natural estrogen or estradiol that it's in our bodies. It actually looked at giving women what they call CCE, which is it's called a conjugated estrogen from the urine from pregnant mares. So, right, so it's an animal hormone and it's taken orally. So the study had women who are on average were 63 years of age, so well beyond menopause, to see if by giving them this conjugated estrogen, they could improve their long-term outlook on cardiovascular disease. The study included 27,000 women, so it was a big study, and they were tracking their benefits, but then thought more women were getting breast cancer diagnoses. And without really looking very well at the data, they just decided to stop the study, and an announcement was leaked to the media that estrogen causes cancer. And the media just had a party with it, and it totally got out of control. Now, yes, there was a group of women who had a little bit more breast cancer, but they were actually the women who were taking not just estrogen alone. It was a group that was taking estrogen and the paired progestin, which is also a synthetic form of the natural hormone that's in our body, progesterone. And that was the group that had more diagnoses of breast cancer, but not statistically significant. But for some reason, people were scared into it, and the FDA at the time decided just to put in a blanket label that estrogen has a risk of breast cancer, has a risk of blood clots, has a risk of probable dementia and cardiovascular disease. So let's step back now. What we do know now is that, yes, if you are over 60 and you have not been taking hormones from the time that you reach menopause and you start your estrogen therapy after that, there is a risk. There's a higher risk, and that's not changing. They're not changing that from the labeling. However, what we do know now, where the data points to, is that if you start estrogen therapy before you're 60 and within 10 years of having menopause, which is the time that you stop having periods, it is actually very beneficial. And I'll quote what the FDA said during their announcement, and we will put the link to the FDA announcement in the comments so you can look at it yourself. They said that it can give you 50% reduction in cardiovascular disease. It can have a 30 to 60% reduction in bone fractures. There's 35% decreased risk of dementia. So there's a lot of long-term health benefits to estrogen, and that's why they're changing this. So this is what happened. And now this is where today. So what do you think about that, Judith?
I think that the FDA announcement was very welcome. As I said in the introduction, there's been a huge spectrum of opinions since the announcement. And I think we need to look at what's happened for everyday women like you and I over the past 23 years. And we have been denied, in many cases, any form of menopausal hormone therapy. There are some lights, though, at the end of this tunnel, is that during that time, we've been able to develop newer medications, different delivery routes than those from the Women's Health Initiative. And I have to say that as someone who worked in the pharmaceutical industry and knows about clinical trials, when I looked back at the WHI study, I could see some flaws in the design. And we have to look at the fact that even for myself, I am a woman, I'm 58, I use menopausal hormone therapy every day. And I know that when I turn 60, I will be looking again. I will be reviewing my risks, because it isn't just menopausal hormone therapy that puts us at risk. There's all kinds of other things. Our age, whether we smoke, our family history. I think we need to look at women as being much bigger than just our hormones. We need to look at our lifestyle and all of those other areas. But I think what we talked about at the beginning was, okay, what does this really mean? And what's changed? I think we've covered that. But what does this mean for us as women? And I think we maybe need to look back at what formulations are available to us. What is the difference between a systemic hormone and a local hormone? replacement product, and also what that can mean for you in terms of your risks, because I think that's something that the FDA did not make very clear. They said that they were moving the black box warnings, but they didn't say which products, what types of formulations. So we wait in anticipation for them to make it a little clearer, and I wish that they had. I think
Yeah.
that was my take on it. It was, okay, this is great, but which ones?
Yeah.
What exactly does this affect? And therefore, it would allow us as women to be able to advocate for ourselves. If you are in that position where you've gone to a healthcare provider and they have blanketly said no, because they're fearful because of the headlines from 23 years ago. We're
Yeah.
still looking at headlines. I can't even remember what I did 3 years ago, let alone 23 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing we have to differentiate is that we have synthetic hormones and we have natural hormones. And I think that's the biggest thing to understand about that study, that it was made on synthetic hormones that really we don't use very much today for replacement therapy. So the conjugated estrogen that they use in that study is not the standard treatment today. Today, the standard treatment is estradiol, which is the hormone that our ovaries naturally make. So that's number one. If you're going to go and ask your doctor, ask what it is that the doctor may be recommending. Is it a synthetic estrogen or is it a natural estrogen? And for example, my HRT is estradiol. And the other part is that there's also progesterone, and that's the natural form. But again, the study used what we call a progestin, which again is a synthetic form of progesterone. The actual name is medroxyprogesterone acetate, MPA. That's what they call it. So ask that question. What is it that you're being given? Is it the synthetic form or the natural form? Because the data points to the natural hormones having less risks than the synthetic forms. I know that there's also the difference between how you take it, right? And maybe, Judith, you can help explain the difference between a local estrogen versus a systemic estrogen.
For sure, and I think when we were talking about this earlier, the quote that you gave me was, "It's like Beyonce going on tour. When she goes on tour, she's going everywhere, and that's a systemic sort of situation.
Yeah.
If she's playing in your living room,
Wait, are we talking about Beyonce or Taylor Swift here? Come on.
I think I would probably prefer Taylor Swift. So, what's the difference between systemic? So, a systemic product of any kind, whether it be HRT or something else, is something that's going to affect your whole system. And we have to step back and just remember that we have estrogen receptors from the tips of our head right the way down to our toes. So when we're looking at menopausal hormone therapy or HRT, we probably do need something that is systemic. Now, systemic hormones can be delivered in lots of ways. Depending upon the country you're in, it can be a gel, something like estrogel.
Yeah, and that's what I take. I take topical, yeah.
Yeah, which you rub onto your outer thighs or onto your outer arms, or you can use a patch, which is what I use, which is the Estradot. This is an example of an estradiol patch. So this you're sticking on your thighs, your bottom, or your tummy. The other one that's a systemic is the Perimetrium or the micronized progesterone. This is very different from the progestin that was used during the WHI study. Right. In some countries, there's also a spray, the Lenzetto spray, that can be used as well. But you're putting it onto your skin, and it then affects your whole systems of your body. And that's why many women find that they get relief from it, because it is helping out with that brain fog, the frozen shoulder, the achy joints, the heart palpitations, all of these different systems, because it's a systemic product.
But before we move on from the systemic, I want to talk about the oral products. And one of the key differentiators that I understand of taking something transdermally versus orally, and one of the frustrations with the announcement with the FDA that they didn't make a differentiation between the safety of those two.
For sure. If you take an oral form of hormones, that is processed by your liver and can have other side effects attached to that, just like lots of other medications.
Absolutely.
And one of the concerns previously was the increase in blood clots because of it being processed by your liver. So if we move on to local, so Beyonce or Taylor Swift is in your living room, these are products that are going to be used in the vaginal area. So usually for GSM or genitourinary symptoms of menopause, and they literally will stay in that area. So they include a mirage of products. The one that I use is Invexi, which is a vaginal insert. And this is for symptoms of, for example, if you're getting dryness or itching, soreness, pain during intimacy or sex. Also, if you're having urinary problems, so you're getting urinary frequency. And for the vast majority of women, using a topical or local estrogen product, and in this case, again, it's an estradiol, can really be helpful. There are other local products as well. Some people use DHEA. I don't have a ton of experience myself with that. But again, these products are not going anywhere else. They are staying within that area and can be incredibly helpful. So that's the nutshell between a systemic hormone and a local or topical hormone. The FDA, again, didn't make it awfully clear as to what the recommendations were going to be and what it was that they were going to remove the black box warnings for. But from my perspective, I think it is absolutely making sense to remove the risk of breast cancer and cardiovascular events, particularly to these topical products. And it has been a long time coming.
Yeah. Well, and I'll go even further. So the doctor that was making the announcement about the vaginal estrogen, she went as far as to say that vaginal estrogen should be safely prescribed to anybody of any age, and it should be taken for life. I think we need to be clear that this is what we know today. We do have to acknowledge that there's still a lot of data to be collected on all this, because as women start using these products now more, obviously we're going to learn more. We're going to have a much more diverse group of women taking these products. And yes, we may find new information, but that is the beauty of science, that as we learn more, as we find out other things, and yes, we may have to pivot and change, but the data right now, it's saying that these, at least from a vaginal perspective, topical products, the benefits of taking them from a long-term health, protecting your bones, protecting your urinary tract, and living a longer life, and of course, managing your symptoms, far outweigh the risks. And I think that's really the big message that needs to come out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to summarize what I heard from this week was that the modern MHT that we have today is not the same as the products that were used in the WHI study, that transdermal estrogen does not carry the same risk as oral estrogen in terms of your risk of clotting, that local vaginal estrogen can be used by the vast majority of women, almost regardless of age. So you don't have to wait. If you're a woman in your 60s and you're having issues with this, you can start on a local estrogen product or estradiol product.
Or if you're a younger woman, some women start going into perimenopause in their 30s. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with trying a local vaginal product. It may help you, right? And that's absolutely safe.
No, and there are some countries where vaginal estrogen is available over the counter.
The UK, right? In the UK now it's available over the counter. Yes.
Yes. So you can purchase this. So I think to summarize what we've found from the announcement this week, the things that we need to remember is that modern day hormone replacement therapy or MHT is not the same as the products that were used in the WHI study. We've come a long way, and rightly so. It's been more than 20 years. Yeah. I think, secondly, that local estrogen is safe for virtually any woman to use, whatever age, whether you be in your 40s or in your 60s and beyond. I think it's something that we can really look at.
Even in a nursing home. Like even if you're in your 90s and it's going to help you with UTIs, it's safe.
The access to it will become a lot broader now that we're
Yes.
reducing these incredibly scary black box warnings that don't need to be on a product such as that. I think also we need to remember that transdermal estrogen or estradiol does not carry the same risks as an oral product, particularly when it comes to clot risks because of what we discussed earlier on.
Yeah.
And I think also it's important to remember that we still need to be using progesterone-based products, whether that be something like the micronized progesterone or an IED like Mirena, which is used in Canada and across the world, because we still do need to be protecting our uterus if you have one and you're taking an estrogen-based product. But I think the last thing I really wanted to look at was that this will allow women to open up conversations, not just about MHT, but about midlife care anyway. In the UK, they've recently brought out that women will have a midlife health check. So it gives us an opportunity to not just look at hormones, but to look at blood pressure, to look at weight, to look at all kinds of other areas. Rather than going on Dr. Google, I would encourage you to open up that conversation with your healthcare professional about menopausal hormone therapy, particularly if you're one of those women in your 40s or 50s who've gone to a healthcare provider and asked them about menopausal hormone therapy, and they've given this blanket, no, we don't use that because it causes cancer.
You know, the country that's leading in menopausal care is actually Spain. They actually have clinics that are publicly funded where you can go and do your midlife check, and it's not a 15-minute consultation to talk about one symptom. You can actually go and have a full assessment, and you can go multiple times to deal with your menopause care. Like that's the dream. So hopefully we'll get there. Go Spain.
Giving women access to care in this way is vital for us to live longer but healthily. Keep watching. We're going to be coming up with some fun scenarios that maybe would help you to have those conversations with your healthcare provider. This episode is going to get a little bit more fun.
Absolutely.
What can I do for you?
I have terrible hot flashes. I can't sleep, night sweats. I'm done. I need something.
Well, you know, hot flashes and sleep issues are normal at this age. It's something that you just really have to settle into. Let's give it some more time and see whether or not these sort themselves out on their own. You can dress in layers, avoid some of your trigger foods, and stay more hydrated. I think we should give this more time.
I'm already 52. I've already stopped having periods. I mean, I didn't want to go on estrogen because I was afraid of breast cancer, but now they're saying that information is incorrect. I'm at the point I want to try it. Like I'm afraid to go to my meetings and break into a sweat. I can't work like this.
So if that was you in your doctor's appointment, there's a few things that we want to try and give you some advice on. Discussing really why wait? Why as a woman should you wait to start menopausal hormone therapy, particularly to your 50s? Reframing this as women that we don't have to suffer. We don't have to keep tolerating these symptoms. The guidelines all say that we don't have to. If you have these sets of symptoms, then you have every right to ask for menopausal hormone therapy.
And your doctor can't tell you now that it has all these adverse risks. So now you can use the data from the FDA to say, no, that this has changed. Can we try it?
So Tanya, what can I do for you today?
Dr. Pringle, my joints, everything hurts. I can't lift my shoulder like beyond this. I'm a runner. I can't even get through a small run. I have no energy. I can't bend my knees. I'm just in pain.
You don't have hot flashes. So this is just the age that you're at where our joints become more achy. Maybe you should just try some stretching. I don't think that this is perimenopause or menopause.
Are you sure? Because I have read that this is one of the symptoms of menopause. I am in my 50s. I don't have my periods. I'm ready to try hormone therapy. I just saw the announcement from the FDA that says that it's safe. They're taking off those risks from the labels. Can we try a very low dose and see if it makes a difference? I feel like I can't function. Now, if this is you and you're having symptoms related to the musculoskeletal symptoms of menopause, these are common. It's not unusual to have joint pain, frozen shoulder, muscle pain. You can advocate for yourself and point this out to your doctor that this could be menopause. More importantly, when you're dealing with symptoms that are not as easily as recognized as hot flashes, track them. Use an app, use a piece of paper. It doesn't matter where you track them, just track them so that you can go to your doctor with data.
I would agree. You will probably find if you're a woman in this situation, these aren't your only symptoms. You are probably going to find that you're getting other symptoms too. And don't forget, it isn't just hot flashes, it's night sweats too. So, hi Tanya, what can I do for you today?
I am going out of my mind. I have itchy eyelids, nausea, my periods are all over the place. And I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning all the time and I can't go back to sleep. I think this is menopause. I'm ready to try something because I'm going out of my mind.
You know, Tanya, itchy eyes, that's not going to be any kind of symptom that's related to perimenopause or menopause. This is probably just allergies or something else that's unrelated. I think we should just keep an eye on it.
But I know I'm not quite 50 yet. I have an app. I've been tracking my symptoms. It's a menopause app. And itchy eyes is on the list. I do think that this is menopause. I don't think there's any harm getting on hormone therapy. Can we try a low dose?
If this is you and you have been to your doctor and have been dismissed in this way, then I think there are some really important things to remember. The first one is track your symptoms. That's what worked for me. Was tracking my symptoms because I really got to know what was happening for my body, and itchy eyes was one of them. That was one of my key symptoms. I think that also we need to recognize that there are lots of lesser known symptoms. There's around 140 that you can find on some of the best tracking apps. And also normalizing those weird symptoms that we can have as women and not dismissing them, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
Hi, Tanya. What can I do for you?
I think I'm a bit of a mess. My periods have been all over the place lately. I'm gaining weight, even though I'm really watching what I'm eating. I have low energy, low libido. Sex has become painful now. And it never used to be this way.
You know, you're in your late 40s to have irregular periods and to have the weight gain. This is totally normal. I would suggest doing some calorie tracking, really focusing on your weight. I think that might really help. And maybe some couples counseling.
Could this be menopause? I mean, I've read that these are some of the common symptoms. Is there something that we could try? I mean, I've read from the FDA recently that now they're more encouraging about using estrogen to deal with some of these things. I'm really desperate.
If this was a patient like you and you're having some of these symptoms, you're in your late 40s, you've got low libido, you're gaining weight, the most important thing is to track your symptoms, because on that appointment, it could have sounded quite general, and it really helps if you can track your symptoms. The other thing is that none of these things are normal for this time of life. They are because your hormones are fluctuating up and down. So I think it's really important that you bring up this topic. And lots of women don't discuss low libido, any kind of sexual issues they have. They tend to come bottom of the list. So it's really important that you bring those up with your healthcare provider so you can start to address some of these symptoms.
Well, hi, Judith. I know we've been watching your cholesterol for the last little while. We've been trying the diet and your numbers are still pretty high. We're at the point that we need to try a statin.
I've actually read that my hormones can affect the cholesterol too. I would rather try some hormone replacement therapy before we start on a statin. It will treat my other symptoms too, because I am having some problems.
Other symptoms right now?
I'm having irregular periods and I'm having night sweats, so it's really affecting my sleep. I'm wondering if we could try some menopausal hormone therapy and then we could check to see whether or not my cholesterol starts to come down. And if not, then I would be happy to look at something like a statin if I had to.
Let me double check your blood work and maybe we can give that a go.
So if this was a patient like you, it is quite common for cholesterol or lipid levels to go up in perimenopause and menopause, and it can be linked to declining levels of estrogen. The other thing is that the number one killer of women is heart disease. So protecting our cardiovascular health at this point in our lives is important. I think it's really worth thinking about whether or not hormone replacement would be right.
But it's also important that the doctor check that there could be other things causing the change of cholesterol. In my case, I have thyroid problems and my thyroid can also impact my cholesterol levels. Make sure that your doctor checks everything. If there's nothing else suggesting why your cholesterol is going up, HRT is definitely something to try, especially if you're going to do it to treat your symptoms anyway.
Great.
So hi Judith, you're here because your results show that you have osteoporosis. The good news is that we have ways to treat it. We need to start you on a biphosphonate right away. I don't know if you have any questions.
Wow, straight to the bone cement, not even dinner first. I've been reading that first line therapy for osteoporosis is MHT, and I would much prefer to start with that route first because it will treat some of my other symptoms. I've been 9 months without a period. I would really much prefer to try the estrogen first rather than going on to other stronger medications.
My only issue with that is that you're not quite at the right age for menopause yet. You're not quite 50. However, if you feel really strongly about it, we can try it and see if there's any difference.
I would like to go down that path and at least give it a trial.
So if this patient represents you, it's also myself. I have osteoporosis. I'm just 53. I was lucky enough that my specialist, he was very supportive. And because I was already in HRT, he said he wasn't going to put me on another medication until we saw if there was an improvement, which is coming up next week. But if your doctor is not open to that, that is a recommended treatment is HRT. So if you have to push a little bit because you're completely in your right to do so. Hi, Judith. What can I do for you today?
I want to talk to you about my periods. I'm going longer between my periods, but they're also getting quite heavy. I'm really struggling at work. I'm struggling at home. I feel down a lot of the time. I don't seem to be able to enjoy anything. I'm not sleeping very well either. I just feel like I'm taking this out on my family all the time. And I'm wondering what you would suggest that I could do about this.
Well, you are in your 40s. You're starting to experience that change. That's normal. I could give you an antidepressant to kind of hold you over. In a little while, it'll pass.
I'm not sure I'd really want to go on an antidepressant. I was actually really hoping that we could look at my hormones and whether or not I need to be on some form of menopausal hormone therapy and then see how that goes. I think that might help the feelings that I have, but also some of my physical symptoms too.
If this is you, where you're feeling this mental fog, unhappiness, you feel depressed, it's very important that you track your symptoms. You'll be able to start seeing that perhaps you don't only have mental symptoms, but you have other physical symptoms that then can point more directly towards menopause, and it'll give you better data to present to your doctor. By having something written and some information in front of you, it'll help you think more clearly when you have somebody telling you that no, that what you're experiencing is just normal. Track your symptoms, bring in with you your data, stand your ground. You're not crazy. And it's something that does happen to a lot of us as we start to go through menopause.
This was me. And the thing that made the difference was the tracking of the symptoms so that I didn't have to remember all of them and be led down a path that really wasn't right for me.
Hi, Judith. How are things going? We started HRT. How are you feeling? How are your symptoms?
I'm feeling much better. My frozen shoulder is gone. My sleep started to really improve. And I'm starting to work out a lot more, which has been really great for me. The only thing is I'm getting some dryness and some itchiness like down there in my vaginal area. And when I'm intimate with my husband, it can get a little bit painful. I was hoping that being on the menopausal hormone therapy that I'm on, that this would really improve. I'm also finding now that I'm working out a little bit more, that when I'm running, I'm sort of wetting myself a little bit. Is there anything else we can do about this?
Yes, you can actually take an estrogen vaginal cream. You can take it safely with the estrogen that you're already taking. It stays locally in your vagina, so you don't have to worry about it. It should help.
So if this patient is you and you're in your 40s and 50s, you've discovered that you've got these extra symptoms like vaginal dryness, itching, burning, then vaginal estrogen is really for you. Virtually anyone can use this because it does stay locally. It's a topical.
Even your grandma.
And it doesn't matter what age you are either. You can use this in your 40s, 50s and beyond. This is the last thing on our list oftentimes, unless it gives us real problems. We don't tend to talk about it, particularly the intimacy side of things, the genitourinary syndrome of menopause. And it's a collection of symptoms that's incredibly common during this time in your life.
Yeah, and even recurring UTIs. Vaginal cream can definitely help with that as well. Better than antibiotics.
Mm-hmm. Talking Ovaries is here for information and empowerment, but not medical advice. We recommend discussing all aspects of your health with your healthcare provider. If you'd like to be part of Talking Ovaries, hit the like and subscribe button along with the notification bell. Or you can show us some love by writing us a review and sharing this episode with the people in your life. Talking Ovaries is written, created and produced by Tanya Lindsay and Judith Pringle. You can stay up to date with the Talking Ovaries by signing up for our newsletter and following us on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. We read every review and email. This material is protected by copyright.